SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්. SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්.
දසන කාන්ති චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Back on track. Unit 1 of the Lakvijaya power plant to be reconnected to the national grid, but power cuts may still not reduce. Support. WHO pledges the supply of essential medical supplies worth $4 million to Sri Lanka. Revelations. 3-member committee appointed to probe death of leopard cites snare-induced damages to its internal organs as cause of death. Violations. TNA MP M.A. Sumantaran says the use of PTA is against promises made to the people at the international fora. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Thursday the 25th of August 2022.
Vim Deara milliliter CA Smart Pack එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News Service. I'm Andrew Bernard. In your top story for tonight, the Ceylon Electricity Board said that Unit 1 of its Lakvijaya power plant in Noracholai, which remained inoperative since last week, will be reconnected to the national grid by next week, reconnecting 270 megawatts of electricity. With that, the Public Utilities Commission said that the prevailing 3-hour power cuts will reduce, but they casted doubts over the possibility of power cuts being reduced to the previous duration of just 1 hour a day.
On August 15th, Unit 1 of the 3-unit Noracholai coal power plant that altogether adds 900 megawatts to the national grid was affected due to technical breakdown. That led to the additional loss of 270 megawatts at a time when Unit 2 of the power plant, which is capable of generating 300 megawatts, was already out of the grid due to maintenance work. As a result, the 1-hour power cuts that prevailed prior to the 15th of August were extended to 3 hours. However, the Ceylon Electricity Board said today that Unit 1 of the Noracholai coal power plant will be reconnected to the national grid by next week. Meanwhile, CEB spokesperson told AdaDerana that repairs of the generator are expected to be completed by next Monday, the 29th of August.
The issue would be whether we could manage or come back to 1 hour again using this plant. Since we are using almost 55 to 60% of hydropower, having enough water in reservoirs, this will continue, and because we get almost 10 to 20 intake almost every day into our reservoirs. But I am not quite sure, because when the plant comes back to the grid, we will be having 270, whether we will be able to reduce this to 1 hour. If we probably use maybe certain amount of fuel also, this is possible, but we need to wait until maybe next Monday to see the progress. I'm quite sure that this will come down, but I do not know, I cannot say exact amount of minutes or hours that we are going to reduce from the present 3 hours power cut.
Now, Minister of Power and Energy Kanjana Wijesekara said today that the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation will not distribute fuel to businesses that do not comply with the guidelines stipulated by the ministry. He said that the ministry observed over 2,100 businesses to have set up their own fuel storage tanks as consumer points, and many without approval. He added that evaluating consumer points, the CPC will continue distribution to essential consumer points, and export businesses will be required to pay in dollars. He said the businesses can also make arrangements to fulfill their requirements from bunker suppliers. Meanwhile, the minister also said there was a delay in unloading the super diesel cargo yesterday due to the bank clearances, and discharging has commenced this evening. The auto diesel cargo arriving tonight will commence unloading tomorrow, and distribution by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation terminal will continue during the night today to make up for the delays. Now, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, pledged essential medical supplies worth $4 million to Sri Lanka in collaboration with the WHO's regional and country offices, as well as the Sri Lanka Ministry of Health and other relevant ministries. In his congratulatory message to President Wickremesinghe, WHO Director General said the procurement has already been initiated and that the list, including delivery times, will be shared through the WHO country office. He noted he has tasked the WHO Health Emergencies Program to take immediate action to meet the most urgent health needs of the people of Sri Lanka. He also said that the WHO will closely monitor the health risks to the population, including the functionality and resilience of the health system, and provide the necessary technical assistance to strengthen provincial health services. The WHO chief also assured that the UN Health Agency looks forward to continuing and strengthening collaboration with Sri Lanka to promote health, make the world safe, and serve the vulnerable. Now, the spate of protests that took place in the past few months led to damages to both public and private property and even the loss of life. Legal measures have been initiated against suspects arrested in connection with the incidents since the 9th of May. Seinadi Guruge, who was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department yesterday in relation to the assault on 2 intelligence officers, was produced before the 4th Magistrate Court today. CID officers requested the magistrate to produce the suspect before an identification parade. After considering the facts presented by the CID, 4th Magistrate Tilna Gamage ordered for the suspects to be remanded until the 2nd of September and be produced before an identification parade on the same day. In the meantime, a woman who was arrested with regard to pushing supporters of the SLPP into the Beira Lake was ordered to be further remanded until the 1st of September. After the suspect was produced before the 4th Magistrate Tilna Gamage today, the magistrate ordered for the suspect to be presented before an identification parade on the next day. The suspect is due to be produced in court. In other developments, lawyer Nuwan Bopage and representatives of the Inter-University Student Federation were allowed to meet with the convener of the IUSF, Wasantha Mudalige, who is being interrogated on a 90-day detention order. Accordingly, last afternoon they met Wasantha Mudalige, who is in custody at the detention centre in Tangol. Now, parliamentarian of Ilankai Tamil Arasu Katchi, M.A. Sumanthiran, says the use and of the Prevention of Terrorism Act now is against the promises given to the people in this country at international fora. Addressing the relaunch of the signature campaign Justice for All, demanding the government to repeal the PTA, he said this law is now used against peaceful protesters who are not terrorists.
An island-wide signature campaign, Justice for All, demanding the government to honour its promise to repeal of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, was relaunched in Colombo today with the participation of the Tamil National Alliance, civil activists and union representatives. It originally commenced in February this year.
The government knew, the Supreme Court knew from its very inception that this law was an unconstitutional law. Even in Sri Lanka, it was acknowledged as an unconstitutional law. Now, over the years, many rights groups have condemned it as a draconian piece of legislation and called for its repeal. We lost our GSP Plus concession because of PTA. And in 2017, then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe actually travelled to Brussels and gave an undertaking that PTA would be repealed. And upon that promise, GSP Plus was reinstated for Sri Lanka. But 5 years on, the law is still extant. Not only is it extant, contrary to promises given to the UN and various international bodies and to this country, that PTA will not be used, that there was a moratorium on PTA. Now, this month, they have restarted using the PTA, and 3 detention orders were signed early this week by the Minister of Defence, President Ranil Wickremesinghe. So this is against all the promises given to the citizens of this country, to various international fora, that PTA would be repealed, and until its repeal, it will not be used. Now it is being used not against who might actually be called a terrorist, but against people who have participated in peaceful protests. Key personalities who are part of the protest movement have been detained under the PTA.
Stay with us for more news after this short break.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says institutions that offer defense studies should be protected for the future of any nation, as the wars in the future will not be the same as in the past. Addressing an event this evening, President Wickremesinghe said countries need armies well equipped with knowledge on current matters, including climate change and technology, to face the challenges of the future.
The Presidential Colours and University Colours awarding ceremony of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University was held this morning under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමන් වෙත උත්තමාචාර දැක්වීම.
සමහරව ඇහුවා ඇයි ඩෙනිස් පේරා ජෙනරල්තුමා මෙහෙම විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක ආරක්ෂා අපිට තියෙන යුද්ධය මොකක්ද කියලා. ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අවුරුදු දෙකක් තුනක් යන්ට ඉස්සර යුද්ධය හරියට මේ ඇතුළට ආවා. ඉතින් මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ආරම්භය එතනයි. එතන ඉඳන් මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ දියුණු වෙලා තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ ඉදිරියට මේක ආරක්ෂා කරන්න. මෙහෙම විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් ඕමනයි. අපි එදා ආරම්භ කරද්දී රටවල් ගණනාවක ආරක්ෂක විශ්වවිද්‍යාල තිබුණේ නැහැ. හමුදාවට පමණක් නෙමෙයි මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල සීමා කරලා තියෙන විශ්වවිද්‍යාල අඩු රටක මේකේ සිවිල් ශිෂ්‍යයන්ුත් බඳවාගෙන තිබෙනවා. ඒක හොඳ වැඩක්. මම ඒ නිසා මේකට විවේචනය කරන එක මම ඒ ගැන එකඟ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හමුදාවක් ගෙනියනවා නම් ඒ හමුදාවේ රඳා පවතින එක නායකත්වයේ උඩ. ඒ නායකත්වයට හමුදාවට උනේ පළවෙනි විනයක්. විනයක් නැතුව හමුදාවක් ගෙනියන්න බෑ. විනයයි පුහුණුවයි දෙකම එකට යන්න ඕනේ. නැත්තම් හමුදාවක් ඇති කරන්න බෑ. ඒත් විනයයි පුහුණුවයි තිබුණා කියලා හමුදාවක් සාර්ථක වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ හමුදාවේ දැනුම තියෙන්න ඕනේ. ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශයේ මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය පමණක් නෙමෙයි මාණ්ඩික නිලධාරීන්ට විද්‍යාලයක් ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. ආරක්ෂක විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ සියල්ලම විශේෂයෙන්ම අපේ යුද්ධ ආරක්ෂක අධ්‍යාපනයට උවමනා ආයතන. ඒ ආයතන සියල්ලම අපි ආරක්ෂා කරන්න ඕනේ. මොකද අපි දන්න අපි දැක්ක යුද්ධ නෙමෙයි අනාගතයේ තියෙන්නේ. ලෝකෙ වෙනස් වෙනවා. අලුත් තාක්ෂණය එනවා. අලුත් දැනුම එනවා. ඒ වගේම හමුදාවක් ක්‍රියා කරනකොට විශේෂයෙන්ම දේශගුණ විපර්යාසය මතක තියාගෙන අනාගතයේ ක්‍රියා කරන්නට තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ දැනුම තමයි ඔබට උවමනා.
Now, Minister of Tourism and Lands Harin Fernandes says is expecting former parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayake to be released tomorrow or by Monday. Taking to Twitter, he mentioned that Ramanayake will be released following the request made by him and Minister Manusha Nanayakara, along with many others, to President Ranil Wickremesinghe. On August 13th, it was reported that the former parliamentarian, who is currently serving a prison sentence over contempt of court, had signed the letter seeking a presidential pardon and that it will be directed to the President. Justice Minister Vijay Dasa Rajapaksa had recently stated that necessary measures will be taken to pardon and release Ramanayake as per the instructions of the President under a presidential pardon. Now, a three-member committee appointed to probe the cause of the death of the leopard in Summerhill Estate in Hatton on the 6th of August handed over its report and findings to Wildlife and Forest Conservation Minister Mahinda Amaraveera. In its report, the committee concludes that the leopard died of injuries sustained to its internal organs in the hours it had been suspended up on the tree and not due to the negligence of wildlife officials. The leopard trapped in a snare was rescued by wildlife officials on the day after chopping down the tree it was trapped on, but the leopard died soon after. On the 6th of August, a leopard trapped in a snare set up for wild boars climbed up top a tree after being entangled in snare wires. It was stuck atop the tree for hours until wildlife officials rescued it in an unconventional manner, given the limited resources in their possession at the time. Wildlife authorities resorted to cutting down the tree on which the leopard was stuck on. However, not too long after the leopard was rescued, it died. Following this, a three-member committee was appointed to look into the cause of the death of the leopard. The report of the three-member committee appointed to probe the incident concluded that the leopard had died after sustaining damages to its internal organs during the time it was entrapped in the snare. The committee report stated that the leopard had not died as a result of the tree being cut down. However, the committee emphasized that although the action of cutting down the tree with the aim of saving the leopard's life cannot be approved, There was no other option to save the life of an animal in danger in such a difficult location under the minimum available facilities. The committee, which pointed out that the wildlife officials had endeavoured to save the leopard's life, further stated that the concerned officers must be thoroughly advised. The committee also put forth 25 recommendations regarding the protection of the leopard population. The final report of the three-member committee was handed over to the Minister of Wildlife and Forest Conservation, Mahinda Amaraweera, today. Welcome back in your business news. With Japan's declining agricultural production indicating that the country will continue to rely on imports, Chairman of Sri Lanka's Export Development Board, Suresh Dimel, says Sri Lankan health foods will have a good potential in the Japanese market. With this Japanese trend of relying on food imports to satisfy both short and long-term food demand, the EDB chairman believes health foods will play an important role in Sri Lankan export revival. His remarks came while addressing a webinar organized by the EDB on exporting health foods to Japan, rules and regulations. Speaking at the webinar, First Secretary of the Sri Lankan Embassy in Tokyo said that there is a market for Sri Lanka's organic and Ayurveda products in Japan.
Japanese consumers have become more health conscious, demanding food products that contain natural ingredients, minimize food additives and sweeteners, and support health, dietary, and functional needs. Suppliers of agricultural goods and exporters to Japan have ample opportunities to fulfill Japan's growing demand for food ingredients and healthy food products.
Japan's declining agricultural production and social and demographic factors indicate that it will continue to rely on imports to satisfy food demand. Even though the global COVID pandemic has disrupted consumer spending overall, research shows that the Japanese consumers' food expenditures have remained steady. Therefore, Sri Lankan health foods would have good potential in the Japanese market, and the Sri Lankan exporters have ample opportunities to fulfill Japan's growing demand for healthy food products. Sri Lanka has many healthy foods that can be exported to Japan. For example, spices like true Ceylon cinnamon, for which Sri Lanka now has protected geographical indication, flowers such as hibiscus, blue butterfly pea or Nil Katarolu with high antioxidant properties, different varieties of dried seeds, fruits and vegetables, which can be promoted in the Japanese market as health products for improved immunity, physical and mental well-being, increased lifespan, and many other health benefits. As Japan is one of the world's most important food markets with high standards and an excellent reputation for food safety, it is necessary to be aware of rules and regulations to comply with while exporting health foods to Japan. There are many laws, rules, and regulations such as food sanitation, food labeling, etc. to meet before exporting.
The organic products also now the demand is increasing. There are opportunities here, and spices and coconut product market also evolving and increasing, and also Sri Lankan spices and coconut products are now in terms of standards. If you have voluntary standards, I think it will be added advantage. But if it is organic, you need to get the organic JS certificate from Japan. In Japan, there are many Sri Lankan Ayurveda schools and also Ayurveda centers. Now, Sri Lankan Ayurveda is popularizing in Japan. So therefore, there is a demand for Ayurvedic product in Japan. They really like Sri Lankan Ayurvedic product. There is a big market here for dried fruits. We have good quality dried fruit, but it is very price competitive compared to the product from other East Asian countries.
Now, the broad market closed the day in red with profit taking visible on selected shares. Further, the upcoming budget and possible increase in taxes on corporates also contributed towards the negative sentiment prevailed in the market. The SPI witnessed a steep fall since the beginning of today's session and continued to descend as retailers realized profits on heavyweights. SPI dropped below 9,000 and closed the day at 8,828, losing 183 points. The turnover dropped to a 3.5-week low and recorded at 2.1 billion rupees. Food, beverage and tobacco and energy sectors meanwhile continued to lead contribution in the market turnover with a joint contribution of 34%. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.